Hey there, guys. Video Sec here. Now, what I'm going to talk about today is something that I have tend to see on my channel, or just people talking in general. But here's at least just a few things that I've seen, I would say almost consistently throughout my channel, and again from the way people talk sometimes over the internet. So here it goes. And one thing that I have seen a lot of is a lot of, I would say definitely mostly men talking about how women suck, and then so I'm going to get a love doll because of it, basically, is what they'll say. Like they're going to fill some void or something by getting this love doll, etc. One second. And to these people, I would say, you know, just get a love doll because you want a love doll. Don't just get a love doll because you feel bad. You get one because you want one. And to me, that also says, what that also says is that you're running away. That you are running away from a fear of something bad happening, whether it is something that has, happened to you once before or not. You are obviously running away from something that you do not want to happen to you. Like, for instance, I have met plenty of people who are insecure of somebody leaving them for somebody else, or just leaving them in general. They are very insecure about that happening to them. But what I also have to say to that is, most people's relationships don't really seem to last nowadays. I do know some people that are married and they've been married for years. They will probably at least be married on the long term. And when it comes to relations and marriage, if you are trying to actually invest in a relationship, that is what you want to do, is have a long-term relationship. And it doesn't always mean, traditional marriage, of course, but you want to have an investment through it, whether it's through, fun, you know, I would say the most often reason why people are doing it. But that lots of times means that the relationship is only going to be on the short term most of the time. Because, for instance, there are lots of guys out there that are looking for, let's say, a bud buddy, but they talk about why it's so hard to find somebody that is like that. It's not that it's necessarily hard to find somebody to have sex with, but to actually keep them around like that is the hard part, and I will tell you why. The reason why that is so hard is because if you are engaging in casual sex with somebody, there is a very big chance, and this goes for both men and women, this isn't just a woman's thing, that this person has other interests than you. And that's, while they might have wanted to have fun with you for a night, let's say, they might not have wanted to have a long-term relations with you. They don't want to, get into the whole love factor and, relationship factor with you. And if you try to push it on them, they will just get uncomfortable and stop talking to you, because they just do not feel that way about you. They're not looking for something like that. And it might even get a bit awkward and inappropriate at times if you try to push this on them when they only just want to have fun with you for a night, let's say, or for a few nights maybe at best. Because they want to feel free, they want to find themselves, they want to engage in just fun, etc. They might change this in their 30s, they might not ever change this lifestyle, you just never know. But that's just how that goes with people like that. They don't really want to be in relationships. And so a lot of times it's going to be very short term with people like this. Well, definitely no more than a few years at best. But I think that's one of the biggest issues with relationships nowadays, is not only people so many people not looking for a long-term relationship for as an investment nowadays, but also people that are just looking for relations with the wrong people that do obviously probably are not into that kind of lifestyle. And they need to take note of this, but they also need to take note of the fact that relationships do not last forever. We don't last forever. Nothing really lasts forever. At some point, your relationship with this person is likely going to end. It could end in 20 years. It can end in 10 years. It can end tomorrow. You just never really know. And that's just something that we all have to deal with, not just you. And moving on from that. And let's say somebody criticizes you for having a love doll. I mean, that's happened to me so many times on here. I can't even count how many times people have tried criticizing me for it. But I always think it's funny especially when the women criticize me, there'll almost always be some guy trying to stick up for me. But then when a guy criticizes me on here, most of the time the other guys on here actually won't stick up for me as much. They sometimes do. They do when they see it, but they don't really do it as much as when the women criticize me. They will seriously stick up for me every single time a woman is trying to criticize me for it. But I also find it funny how they're like, "Don't worry about these women, video psych," and I'm just thinking like, there's actually if anything, a bit more women. I mean, a bit more men criticizing me for having a love doll than women. Actually, did you know that on this channel? And I think part of the reason is because more men catch note of this channel, and so more men criticize me for having a love doll in here. But if more women were hearing about this channel, I think it would be pretty equal, really. It's pretty much just 50-50 with the criticism on it, really. But what that also says to me, like when they do something like that, is at least a couple of things. One, they probably don't have much of an imagination. And two, they have been, I would say, probably brought up or taught these things like it is a sin to have something like this. Now, the funny thing is that they have always, even in the past, criticized people for having, let's say, pocket pussies and, other sex toys, even those fists that you see in those sex stores sometimes. Just sex toys in general. But, they've just it's never really affected anybody. And just like I say sometimes, if anything, it's a healthy thing to do and use to masturbate. It's a healthy thing to do. Of course, you don't want to get addicted to masturbation too, and that is a bad thing. But if you keep pretty much almost everything within reason, really, it's not really a bad thing. And last I saw, nobody ever went to a hospital just because they had sex with a love doll, just so you know. So it's not really hurting anybody. And moving on from that. And another thing that I would say actually quite a bit have seen on here is not only people, of course, criticizing the company Real Doll here in the US, which is in California. And, as you guys know, I got a love doll from them. Just 1 second, I need a drink. Like I was saying, as you guys know, I have a love doll from them. And I've shown that love doll on here more than several times. And maybe eventually I will show her again, but it won't just be just to show her off. It will be for a reason, But lots of times I will see people, criticize their price tags, etc., and that TPE dolls are better than real dolls, etc., and that the TPE dolls look better. And so at one point, I made a video, in fact, at least a couple different videos about the differences between TPE and silicone. Now, I won't go into any real detailed specifics at the moment. Maybe I will do that later. But I just always thought, ever since then, because those videos also got a lot of views, and I always thought it was funny how so many people below in the comments were still, even though I actually showed the fact that you can get way more detailed with silicone than you can with TPE. In a nutshell, I was still seeing so many guys below in their comments saying, "Oh yeah, TPE is totally better and blah blah blah, even looks better." See, I mean, it was with the TPE doll from the site I got it from and the real doll, it was like almost a night and day difference in details. While the real doll almost looks like it could have been alive, and it had plenty of detail. It has plenty of detail. In my silicone doll that I had at the time, I don't have anymore. I mean, don't get me wrong, it doesn't. It's not like it didn't look good, but it just was not nearly as detailed as the real doll was. It just did not look anything close to the real doll. Just not as realistic. I mean, granted, the real doll's a bit heavier than your average TPE doll, but it just kind of cracks me up to this day. And even to this day, I sometimes will get guys on here trying to justify their purchase of a TPE doll. And I have nothing against that. In fact, if you want to have a cheaper doll and it's at least a reasonable quality that will last you at least a few years before it breaks down and you have to get a new one, I have seriously no issues with that. I really don't have any issues with that. But what I do have an issue with is so many people have been going to these knockoffs stores and then they are acting like they are the real thing or just as good a quality when it's actually pretty obvious that they are not as good quality as even the real TPE dolls from those real companies. They are knockoff versions that are like $500 that will break on you within a year. If not, even by the time it gets to you, it's already broken. The skeleton or something is already broken. And sometimes, even if they aren't broken, sometimes they will only last you a month, or sometimes it'll be a case where the site is a complete scam and you have just been completely ripped off. Of course, there's ways around that, and sometimes you can take back your money and get it back. But in the end, they have gotten that money from you lots of times and they have just gotten away with it. And of course, you do not want to fund people like that are scams like that. And with that being said, what that also means to me is that I think a lot of people they have a hard time reasoning with the fact that they are not able to afford something like a real doll that is really high end, and so they want to down. How should I say this? They want to down. Like they want to kind of try to keep themselves thinking that they want to focus on the bad of real dolls so that they don't feel bad about the fact that they can't afford one is, I guess I would say, the best way I can think of saying it at the moment. But you don't really have to justify to people why you've bought somebody's product, though, is what I would have to say to that. You don't have to justify it to me. You don't have to justify it to anybody. You probably looked around, you got the doll that you wanted. That's just fine. And if you want a cheaper doll, whatever, that's fine too. It doesn't really matter. As long as you're happy with your purchase, it doesn't really matter. and also as long as you didn't get completely screwed over, I would say. And with that being said, I'll just end this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.